and gentlemen, welcome to the Reboot Roundtable, the show where every week we talk about reboots, rewrites, and sequels, but more honestly, we just talk about general nerdom. And I am joined, as always, by Jay and CJ.
Hello, hello.
So, how are you all doing on this brilliant snowy day?
What's that?
Your audio cut out. So what did you just say?
There's snow outside.
There is snow outside.
Yeah.
It is very cold outside currently, at least for us. Which I guess is preferable to some parts of the country currently. We definitely.
Oh, the diffuser's on me.
If you're out in the areas where it's not cold and it's the actual opposite, take care of yourself if you're seeing this, because yeah, it is kind of nuts out there right now.
Prayers are out for sure.
So this week we're talking about something I'm very excited to be talking about. We're going to talk about canceled Star Wars game projects. And what inspired this particular topic is recently, I think it was within the last month now, I don't remember the exact date, a Wii copy of the canceled Battlefront 3 was found. And modders are now trying to use it to reverse engineer the game. And obviously Battlefront 3 was going to be the sequel to the 2002 Battlefront 2, that is well renowned for being just a spectacular shooter game. And it's one of those games that just, it's so sad that we never got the Battlefront 3 from it. But with that on the mind, I thought it would be cool to talk about all the Star Wars canceled games that we're never getting. And we could talk a little bit about, like, why were they canceled? What would have made it cool? Would they have been good games in general? And such and such. I'm sure we'll find lots of subjects in that regard. So let's start with CJ. What is your experience with Star Wars gaming in general?
Now let me tell you, boy. My first ever Star Wars game was Lego Star Wars 3. Absolutely loved it. Amazing game. Then I went to the Xbox 360 Connect game, where they had all the really awful yet really enjoyable Star Wars parodies.
Oh my god, that is such a flashback. Rancor Rampage, that fucking campaign with the Padawans, the Dance Dance Revolution knockoff.
It was
I've heard
Han
of that
Solo.
I
Han
loved
Solo.
it. It was literally just Dance, but better. I loved it.
It went ham. It went hard. Yeah, that is a flashback I hadn't thought about in years. So you've been playing Star Wars games for years.
Yes, when they announced the Battlefront 1 remake for EA on like the PlayStation 4, that was what brought me initially from an Xbox kid to a PlayStation kid. I mean, I went back to Xbox later, but that was the reason that I bought a PlayStation, was for that, because I saw you could play as I saw Ewoks running away, playing as a rebel, trying to fend off like Imperial stormtroopers, and I'm like, this is it. This is the game of all time.
So, Jay, you are not a Star Wars fan, but what is your experience, if any, with Star Wars gaming?
Yeah, so I have played quite a bit of the new Battlefront 2. And I know at least bits and pieces of the Force Unleashed, the like main character from it, Starkiller, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know quite a bit of his lore just simply because power scaling goes crazy. Also, the Star Wars Connect was a crazy shout, CJ, because I've actually played that. I just did not remember that. Anywhere in my soul did I remember that, but it's just boom there. So that's my experience. Not nearly as in depth. I haven't played any of the Lego Star Wars. I need to, want to, haven't. But yeah, that's about where I sit.
So we have actually more knowledge here from you, Jay, than I thought you would have on this topic. So that is kind of actually exciting. So I guess we can start with the legendary like Star Wars cancel game that everyone still talks about, Star Wars 1313. It was going to be an Uncharted style game about going into the Coruscant underbelly. And I don't remember if it ever got confirmed, but it was basically implied to be a Boba Fett game. There was some leaked footage of it, and yeah, it was literally going to be just Uncharted, but it's fucking Coruscant.
That's what this page here says. Is that
Yeah.
it was supposed to revolve around Boba Fett in his early adulthood, navigating Coruscant, known as Level 1313.
Yeah, so that got obviously canceled, but like, yeah, what are our thoughts on like a bounty hunter, like Uncharted inspired game in the underbelly of Coruscant? Because obviously that would have come out years past. It was one of the first things that got really big for the Star Wars canceled games. So it obviously wouldn't have a lot of the modern things that we expect from gaming. But in that era, do you think a game like that would have held up, or would it have been one of those things where, if it hadn't been canceled, would we even be talking about it? What are your all's thoughts on that?
CJ, what do you think? And then I'll get into mine.
I feel like that would have gone incredibly hard because, I mean, let's be honest, Boba Fett is an absolute fan favorite character, especially when talking in the Imperial Age. Like, when you're thinking bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe, typically you're thinking Cad Bane or you're thinking Boba and Jango Fett.
Yeah.
And good lord, a game featuring Boba Fett, especially in the Uncharted style. Like, we got a couple Clone Wars episodes that went in kind of the underbelly of Coruscant, and then, there was a movie that Obi-Wan saw bits and pieces, but to go more in-depth, I feel like making a game that was essentially Uncharted, but where you follow Boba Fett, it would have been what Star Wars Outlaws is trying to be.
Yeah, I can see that. It definitely wouldn't have been open world, which I think is one of the strong suits of Outlaws. But yeah, it could have been really fun to run around in the underbelly. I'm trying to remember what studio was working on that.
Working on 1313.
Yeah, but I do know it was going to be a companion piece to an unreleased Star Wars TV show being directed by George Lucas called Star Wars Underworld. That there is some footage out there of the test footage for it. But then it kind of got canned, if memory serves, by the whole Disney buyer, and I think it may have been canned even a little bit before that. I will say this. Yes, it could have been a cool game. I think it could have been similar to Star Wars Bounty Hunter, which was the Jango Fett game from early 2000s. That isn't a bad game, all things considered, despite its age. It could have been a fun game, but I also don't think it would have been one of those that we remember for years. Like, I don't think it would have been held to the standard of, like, your Battlefront 2s or even your other Uncharted games. Would it have been fun? Would it have been interesting? Yes. But I don't know if, like, Boba Fett is the best character for an Uncharted-inspired game. I feel like it would almost be better for almost a proper Metroidvania if you were doing a Boba Fett game.
Well, I think the idea is really fun, actually. Especially, like, Uncharted. Like, just that style of game is doomed to succeed in a Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
However,
Not doomed to succeed is a crazy way to phrase it.
Well, that comes into the issue is the developers were actually LucasArts. Lucasfilm.
Yeah, it was Lucas Studios itself.
Lucas Studios, who, if memory serves, does not have the greatest repertoire when it comes to games making.
Not actually. So older Lucas Studios, very well known for making some amazing games. Those older Star Wars games were pretty well regarded. But the whole studio was canned after the Disney purchase, if memory serves, and it all went to EA. So, which is one of the reasons people talk about it a lot.
Oh, they made Sam and Max. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they made Lucasfilms did Sam and Max. They did most of the old Star Wars games. They did a few of those old Indiana Jones games.
I see that on here.
So yeah, next up, let's talk a bit about like some of the sequels that got canceled. Like especially the games that were left on cliffhangers. There was originally going to be a Force Unleashed 3 in play, but it got canned pretty early on. Force Unleashed 2 kind of was left on a cliffhanger depending on the ending, so it would have made sense to get a Force Unleashed 3. I was never a big fan of the Force Unleashed games. I always found them a little too... It's going to sound weird. A little gamey feeling for me. I felt like the lightsaber was kind of like a wiffle ball bat more than a lightsaber. But, I would have loved to see where the franchise could have gone. The what-if elements of it were always really cool.
Even if over the top. Very
over the top. But and to be fair, it was inspired by, like, the original God of War games. So, like, it does...
It feels a lot like God of War.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my thinking watching gameplay of it, was it does just look like looks a ton like the old, like, God of War 2, God of War 3,
It plays like those games. Yeah.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah. Also along that line, obviously the one that we were talking about when we first started the episode, the unreleased Battlefront 3 by Free Radical. And they had also, like, this game was basically ready to launch. It was said to be 99% done when it got canned. They also already had plans for Battlefront 4, which was going to be like a what-if Battlefront game, where Luke would have been a villain and Vader would have been still like a redeemed hero. It would have been this really crazy pitch. There's some concept art that was released. But yeah, the original 2 Battlefront games are classics. The Battlefront 3, with it having space to ground combat, was absolutely revolutionary, and we've never seen a game really do that since. It is, I think, a massive travesty that it got canceled. What are your all's thoughts on that?
I absolutely adore the Battlefront games. I think they are amazing. And the fact that the 3rd game was canceled, because each Battlefront they've done, they've only proven to just improve, the game.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we did not get to receive a 3 genuinely hurts my soul, because the sheer amount of potential, not to mention it being essentially finished. So it's like the treatment of tripping right before the finish line. Like they were ready.
I remember as a kid, so even though Battlefront 3 got canceled, 2 more Battlefront games were based on the Battlefront 3 code, did get released. I can't remember one of the game's names, but one of them was Star Wars Renegade Squadron, and it was released on the PSP. And I remember playing that in the car, and it was mind-blowing because of just how expanded it was, even for such a limited device. And it will definitely, I think, go down in history as one of the greatest losses. And not to say that the DICE Battlefront 3s are bad, or the Battlefront 1 and 2 is bad. I think they are great in their own regard. And hopefully we do get a Battlefront 3 of the modern series at some point, but it does feel like that franchise is kind of cursed in its own way. Moving on from that, we have Republic Commando, which was the Halo-inspired shooter. That came out in, 05, 04, somewhere in that era, where you got to play as the Republic Commandos.
I currently have it installed.
It ends 05. Ends on a cliffhanger. There was going to be a sequel. The sequel, I think, was either rumored to be an Imperial Commando or Rebel Commando. It also could have been... I want to hear that was what they were originally doing with it. And the characters of Republic Commando have kind of gone untouched in new canon since then. They showed up in Bad Batch a little bit, and they showed up in the Clone Wars. But that is a game. I personally didn't love it because I don't really like the Halo-style combat, personally. I know that's a really hot take.
Boo.
So for me, I find it a little hard to play, especially because it's also just really an old game. The buttons are not laid out by our modern standard yet. But it is a fan favorite, and it does have some really cool scenes, and a tactical Star Wars shooter is really cool. And it is one of those franchises that would be cool to see brought back. Yeah, I'll hand it to you all on the thoughts on the idea of the Republic Commando series or its failed sequel.
Despite the inspiration behind it, I want to say in terms of gameplay, it feels a lot. Commando felt a lot more like Doom than it did Halo.
Yeah, I can actually see that.
The wide arsenal of weapon. It felt a little bit more like I was playing a Doom game than I was a Halo game.
I get what you're saying.
But I guess I can see the comparison. But I absolutely adored Commando. To this day, I still want to know what happened to Sev.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did bro make it out? I don't know. We don't see. I wish we could have gotten a sequel because one, I would have loved to have seen a additional mission or a sequel to the Clone Commandos, but whether it have been Imperial or for example Imperial Commando, it would have been really fun to play as say a Shadow Trooper, like a what is it? Is it IS? I forget what the Imperial officers are. I forget what they're called. They're like the Imperial
ISB,
Gestapo.
Imperial Security Bureau.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen a game featuring an ISB group, or as we see Bad Batch, after the squad that Crosshair gets joined into.
Yeah,
I would have loved to have seen something like that.
Yeah, I think it would have been really cool, and I think also I would love it if we don't come back to Commando specifically. I'd love a Bad Batch game set in the Clone Wars era, based in this style. Like there is a lot of opportunity here for that tactical Star Wars shooter. I'm actually really surprised we've never gotten one.
Especially because all the people in Bad Batch essentially would fulfill the same roles as
the same
Commando.
That was the idea. A lot of people even wanted, when Bad Batch was airing, to get a proper Clone Commando versus the Bad Batch episode. Then we just never got it. Moving on to other games that just didn't get sequels. Knights of the Old Republic. We got the Old Republic MMO, but Knights of the Old Republic 3 never came out. Knights of the Old Republic 2 ends on a massive cliffhanger that was later covered in books. Knights of the Old Republic is a game that I've changed my opinion on a lot. I originally hated it. I don't love the time period of the Old Republic, but I have grown on it from its gameplay perspective. It was very tactical in that regard, very fun, followed the Revan story. Yeah, ends on a cliffhanger. Have you two, either of you, touched the Old Republic? Not the MMO, the original Knights series.
I played the MMO. I haven't found a means to play like the original Knights of the Old Republic.
It is on Steam, and it does play pretty well on Steam.
Oh. I was unaware of
yeah,
this.
and it was made by BioWare. They actually, they were, when they didn't get to renew Knights of the Old Republic 3, I think that's when they went to Mass Effect. So
When's
some say
BioWare
that
not
was a good
cooking, though?
timeline until Mass Effect apparently is bad. I don't know, or it
Andromeda.
was bad.
Andromeda was rough.
I don't know. I've
Andromeda.
not played it. Andromeda's rough.
I do need to play Mass Effect.
Yeah.
I played the
Yeah,
MMO
Mass
with
Effect had
you.
like 2 really good games and then stopped making good games.
Mass Effect is a game I feel like I would really enjoy. I've never given it a try.
You know, like how Assassin's Creed like really stopped being good after like Black Flag.
Yeah.
They just like they made like Odyssey and Valhalla. They just kept continuously getting worse. The same thing happened with Mass Effect.
So, I guess the next Star Wars game to talk about, taking a break from games that are never got sequels, to one of the more recent cancellations, which was being worked on by the guys who made Titanfall, and it was going to be a Mandalorian first-person shooter Titanfall-inspired game. That got canceled. What is that, Rocksteady? No. Rocksteady and Rockstar sound super similar. I can never remember which one it is that did Titanfall.
Respawn.
Holy... Neither of them! Respawn Entertainment, which they are doing the Jedi series still, but they were working on a Mandalorian first-person shooter game that got canned, which I think is a travesty.
Yeah, that would be really fun, especially because Titanfall is one of the best, if not the best, single-player like campaign shooter ever made. Is that a hot take? Titanfall 2, by the way.
Yeah, I know. People love Titanfall 2. I need to play it. My brother has grilled me over the fact that
The campaign is so good.
Oh my god.
I own it.
BT.
It's downloaded. I just haven't sat down to play it. It's just one of those things. I guess
We played online once, I think.
No, I've never even played online with it.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a game I need to just play it at some point. I really do.
Go play
I
the
played
campaign.
Apex. So
Don't even utter Apex in the same breath as Titanfall, unless you're talking about how
but
much
yeah,
better Titanfall is.
no, but a Mandalorian-inspired game like that with the wall running, the jetpacks, that would have been cool. That would have been really, really cool.
I think Respawn has proven themselves in that regard.
Yes.
When you look at the gameplay they're able to produce, when you look at games such as Titanfall, they're very good in that regard. And when you look at something like their story, you look at what they've had with Star Wars thus far, and the development they've had with was Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. Outstanding game. Okay, minus the optimization for PC, but that aside, outstanding. I love what they did with Cal. I love what I mean. They brought a Night Sister back.
Oh,
and it was really good.
Hey,
Marin
is such an amazing character, and I also love how people simp for her, but it doesn't seem creepy like a lot of other characters that people simp for. For the most part, I'm sure the freak side exists out there, but as fandoms that go, it's surprisingly wholesome from what I found on the internet.
Is Darth Maul a Night Sister?
I would
He's a
trust
Night
Respawn
Brother.
to create a Mandalorian game. I would absolutely trust them to make that. So it's a travesty that it got canceled.
So now we're gonna move on to even like less touched games, like games that were really barely even finished by any stretch. Starting on with Project Ragtag. So I'm just gonna read what information I have on it, and then we're gonna talk about it because my brain barely remembers. But there was released footage of it. It was gonna be it was being worked on by Visceral Games before it was shut down by EA Studios. And it was going to be set in the time of the Empire. It was being done by the director who did the Uncharted series. And there would be gameplay inspired by Uncharted. It was another one of those Uncharted-inspired games. Who has the train? I'm going to fight it.
What train? Are you schizophrenic?
I might be. That one episode with Ventress fighting on the train.
It's me. I'll mute while it's going.
Oh, no, you're good. But yeah, so there was a glimpse of it shown at E3 in 2016, but then the project got canceled. If you have not seen the footage for Project Ragtag, it looks so gorgeous. I think a lot of it is what became... It feels a lot like what Star Wars Outlaws kind of was going for. Yeah, it was going to be kind of, from our understanding, a kind of semi-open world, beautiful, AAA Star Wars action-adventure game that was set in the Rebellion era. If memory serves, you were supposed to have like a whole little crew with you. Yeah, Star Wars Ragtag. Any thoughts on that before we go on to the next one?
I don't have much experience.
The train is still going.
There's not a whole lot that I can add in that one.
No, it's another one that's just like, yeah, I would have loved to see it, but would never got to it. Last one that I've got on here. Actually, there's last two. We have Battle of the Sith Lords, which was going to be a Darth Maul game. It ended up becoming a lot of what the prototype for Force Unleashed 2 was going to be. Yeah, I'm not really sad we lost it, because apparently it was either this or the Clone Wars Darth Maul, and I preferred Clone Wars Darth Maul. He is a Shakespearean villain. It was beautiful. I don't think this was any real loss, losing that.
What was it about? What was it about?
The game was just going to be a Darth Maul game set sometimes out. Like, it was going to be the Darth Maul comes back from the dead, but it was going to be a game. And what they did in the Clone Wars is just so beautiful that I'm not like particularly depressed that we
It's fair.
Lost it. And then there was going to be a Star Wars first-person shooter in a more Call of Duty style called First Assault. And there was a closed beta for it, but after the Disney acquisition, it got closed. Again, it didn't look particularly amazing to me. It looked like a pretty basic first-person shooter.
I would prefer Battlefront. It's basically that, but on a bigger scale, and you can choose your first person or third person.
Yeah, I feel like Battlefront really is just the best way to do a FPS game in the Star Wars universe.
For the most part, yeah. It's such a perfect... and it's done so much, that franchise. So, The last thing I want to cover, because we got a few more minutes, and this is something that, Jay, I don't know what you're going to add to the conversation, but I really want to hear CJ's thought. You may have something to add as well. What are the Star Wars games that should be coming out at some point? Like, what are the games that either, for CJ, for you, either Star Wars games you wish got sequels, or even games that are just things you've heard fans talk about for years, and you're like, this needs to be a game in the Star Wars universe?
I want to see a Battlefront 3, but made in the style, in which case of like its storyline structure would be similar to that of like the Battlefield story.
Mm-hmm.
Like for Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5,
Yes.
that kind of way where it shows like various battles from different factions in different places, different time periods. I would love to see something like that, or to have a campaign that takes place more so like during the Clone Wars, because in recent years, most of the campaigns that we've gotten have been featuring the Empire with DLC that'll end up featuring
the First Order.
The First Order. I would like to see a little more in terms of like the Clone Wars.
For sure.
But regardless, I want to see I really just want another Battlefront 3. I need more Battlefront because the servers on Battlefront 2 are dying and the classic remake is so buggy.
Oh, the original Battlefront game has more active players. It just doesn't have the multiplayer anymore. Jay, do you have anything to add to it before I go mega nerd here?
I think a Battlefront 3 sounds really fun.
Yeah.
I liked Battlefront 2 whenever it wasn't poopy buns.
Yeah.
Droideka Rush.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I just love the general system that Battlefront has going, of the massive battles. You have the heroes running around. And yeah, just seeing that more polished, seeing that again. What changes would they add? I don't know. I didn't play Battlefront 2 a ton, probably
Yeah.
less than 15 hours. But I do like the idea of at least getting something out there again to get it popular again, because it was fun and I enjoyed it when I played it.
It's honestly surprising we don't have a live service Star Wars game like Battlefront running around.
Yeah, no. There needs to be something out there because Star Wars is such a big, even like big franchise. It needs to have a game, you know? It needs to be
Yeah.
just one big game. That's why I loved the Fallen Order when it got so big. I actually
Yeah.
really enjoyed first one. I don't remember what it was called. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
it was
when I
Jedi
played
Fallen
it.
Order and then Jedi Survivor.
Right. I really enjoyed Fallen Order, but I know you personally don't love that style of gameplay.
Yeah, but I'll say this: I love the story because I love being in that world. Like that is
Yeah.
one of those games that I was able to get past my personal gameplay gripes. My biggest Star Wars game, and I've wanted a sequel or a remake or a reboot for years, and it is still a game that is actively loved because of its modding community. Star Wars Empire at War. It is the Star Wars RTS game from 2005, I believe. It is, in my humble opinion, the best real-time strategy game that exists. It and Medieval 2 Total War, to me, are peak RTS games. The fact that we have not gotten a Star Wars Empire at War sequel or rewrite or reboot, and they were going to be working on one, and there were a couple Star Wars RTS games rumored to be being worked on, and we ain't heard shit about it, and I'm upset because I love RTS games, and I love Star Wars, and I want it. But that being said, the modding community for Empire at War, like Awakening of the Rebellion, and they're doing a Clone Wars mod soon. Oh! Very hype. I'm very excited for it. Other good news, like things to be excited for in the Star Wars gaming space. Star Wars Outlaws is getting better. The first update they did was massive and improved a lot of the issues people had. And we've got one more Outlaws DLC coming out that's going to have Hondo Naka in it. The greatest pirate in the Star Wars universe, who I love dearly. You know, I'm not gay, but Hondo Onaka is all I'm saying.
You can't say that.
Hondo Onaka, though.
You can't
But is the AI smarter, please?
Make the AI smarter. But then also we've got in the works apparently the third of the Jedi trilogy. So Jedi Fallen Order, Jedi Survivor, and then whatever they're doing for the finale of that trilogy.
Jedi dead. Period.
Yeah, I mean that maybe it could just be Jedi extinguished. Ooh, hold up. Anyways,
I'm not holding up.
please.
Jedi fell.
There's
period.
also, and we
mark?
haven't heard anything about it really, but there was going to be a Star Wars game done by the guys who did Detroit Become Human, set in the High Republic era, but haven't heard any news beyond its teaser trailer that came out. But yeah, like, so Star Wars gaming is in a really weird spot, but yeah, this is kind of reflecting on a lot of like I can't believe it all got canceled, but also Star Wars gaming has always been amazing. Like, it has been good. And whether it's the Battlefront trilogy, the Knights of the Old Republic, there's a lot of good games here. Even someone who despises Star Wars like Jay Bailey has had some fun in that world.
I don't despise Star Wars. I despise Han Solo. There's a difference.
You want to
I want to see a game that's just like Lord of the Rings Gollum. We're going to have Star Wars Mouse Droid.
No, can we get Star Wars what is
Star
it?
Wars.
Masters of Terrakasi, a sequel to that.
Star Wars Ewok. You play one Ewok.
There were
Plays a
do
Gaunt
you two
droid.
know about Star Wars Masters of Terrakasi?
What did you call
I
it?
don't.
It was a Star Wars fighting game in the style of like your Mortal
Ooh.
Kombats. But what
That
made
sounds
it so
horrible.
hilarious, it was so bad. It was well established as bad. And like your fighters were like, yeah, you had your Darth Vaders and a Han Solo in a Mortal Kombat style fight. And then you also just had a random Tusken Raider, whose name, mind you, was spelled Hoarr. Whore.
HOA. Yeah.
So you could have Vader
Raider throwing
fighting
on
Whore in
Vader.
an official Star Wars game.
Yeah. I mean, if there's any character in Star Wars who is more than willing to take down whores, it would be Vader.
Anakin Skywalker, confirmed simp though. But yeah, thank you for watching. This was a really fun episode. Yeah, please subscribe, comment. What are your Star Wars games that you hate that were canceled? Star Wars games you want made? I don't know. Give us anything. You want a Star Wars
Star Wars
dating
games
sim?
we
Tell us
shouldn't
about
have.
your Star Wars dating sim dreams. I don't care. I'm just curious at this point.
And if you're single, Hit me up.
No, don't say that. No, no.
I will tell you that you're the problem.
He's holding a thermal detonator. Anyways, I will see you all later.
That was a fun episode.
How do I stop the